Welcome to Beyond the Lens, where history comes alive, and every documentary takes you deeper than ever before. History isn't just written in books. It's carved into ancient ruins, hidden beneath the oceans. For breathtaking this is a journey beyond the lens.
If you look down from space, Earth has a familiar geography: continents, oceans, mountain ranges. But off the coast of the United Arab Emirates, there is a giant palm tree sitting in the water. Human hands built this entire landmass grain by grain, bypassing the millions of years usually required for natural islands to form. The iconic palm shape serves as a specific solution to a geographic and economic challenge that threatened the city's future growth. To understand why this island exists, you have to look at what Dubai used to be. In the 1960s, it was a quiet fishing village where locals earned a living pearl diving in the Persian Gulf. That changed in 1966 when drillers struck oil. The discovery brought an instant rush of cash, and the city began paving roads and building hospitals. But Dubai's ruler, Sheikh Rashid, recognized a flaw in the math. The oil reserves under his emirate were relatively small. He knew they would run dry within a few decades, leaving his rapidly expanding city without a primary source of income. To survive long-term, Dubai needed a strategy that replaced oil revenue with foreign investment, real estate, and high-end tourism. By the 1990s, the plan was working. International companies set up headquarters in the desert, and millions of tourists began booking luxury vacations. That boom exposed a hard geographic limit. Dubai only had about 70 kilometers of usable natural coastline. Eager developers quickly snatched up all the available beachfront. They could have built inland, but real estate in the middle of the desert lacked the massive investment appeal of the water. Demand for the shoreline outpaced the physical supply of land. So engineers proposed a radical way to manufacture a brand new coastline right in the middle of the open ocean. This diagram shows a standard artificial island, a basic circular landmass. The problem with a circle is that only the outer edge touches the water. Most of the real estate is landlocked in the center. By pulling that same amount of land into the shape of a palm tree, you are stretching the edge of the island inward and outward. Suddenly, every single plot of land sits directly on the water. This geometry hack essentially doubled the city's coastal footprint. The palm branches alone added over 70 kilometers of brand new waterfront property. While the palm tree is an important cultural symbol, this specific design is also a mathematical optimization. It extracts the absolute maximum real estate value out of a finite amount of sand. Executing this design in the open water required engineers to contend with the constant, shifting power of the Persian Gulf currents. Engineers relied entirely on natural materials. They dropped over 7 million tons of rock to form a massive crescent breakwater to shield the site from waves. Then, specialized dredging ships vacuumed hundreds of millions of cubic meters of sand from the ocean floor and sprayed it into the protected water to build the land. But loose, wet sand is unstable. If you try to build multi-story hotels on a pile of raw ocean sediment, the ground will shift and the structures will sink. This animation shows how they solved it using a technique called vibrocompaction. Engineers drove massive vibrating probes deep into the reclaimed land. The intense vibration forces the grains of sand to pack tightly together. Removing the empty space between the particles turned a loose slurry of ocean dirt into a foundation that could support the weight of a modern urban infrastructure. To get the maximum coastal surface area we talked about earlier, the curves of those palm branches had to be mathematically perfect. But surveyors cannot use traditional land tools in moving water. Hitting those precise angles required a technological leap in construction: differential GPS. Instead of steering by eye, the captains of the dredging ships followed coordinate data beamed down from satellites. This allowed them to place the sand with centimeter accuracy. Because of this technology, the physical island is essentially a tangible 3D printout guided by orbital data. Construction began in 2001, and within a few years, the sandy outline of a massive palm tree breached the surface of the Persian Gulf. Without relying on a single structural concrete pillar for the foundation of the island itself, Dubai successfully added a permanent geographic feature to the map. The sheer volume of investment drawn to this new shoreline provided a major indication that Dubai could thrive as a global tourist hub. But manufacturing the landmass was only the foundation of the project. Now that the sand was locked in place, engineers had to figure out how to run roads, fresh water, and electricity out to an isolated island that hadn't existed just months before. For thousands of years, human civilization played by a strict set of rules dictated by natural geography. We built our shipping ports in deep, natural bays. We built our cities on solid bedrock. We settled where the Earth allowed us to settle, adapting our ambitions to the physical shape of the planet. By the early 2000s, Dubai wanted to become the world's premier luxury destination. They had the capital, and they had the vision. What they lacked was usable coastline. They were effectively running out of beaches to build the massive resorts required to attract global tourism. Their solution was to completely ignore the geographic limits. Instead of fighting for the remaining coastline, Dubai poured millions of tons of sand directly into the Persian Gulf to artificially expand their borders into the open ocean. From orbit, the finished landmass looks like a perfectly symmetrical palm tree. Down on the ground, however, a massive pile of loose sediment does not naturally behave like a city. Creating the physical shape in the water was only the initial hurdle. The real engineering problem was forcing a lifeless, floating sandbank to act like permanent, habitable Earth. To anchor this new territory, engineers started at the center. They built a massive trunk, linking the artificial island to the mainland with a 300-meter bridge. Every single road and utility line would branch out from this central artery. Looking at this 3D cross-section, you can see exactly what it takes to make sand livable. Hidden immediately beneath the street level is a densely packed grid installed completely from scratch. We're looking at thousands of kilometers of freshwater pipelines, sewage systems, electrical grids, and high-speed fiber optics, all buried below the surface. While those pipes were still being laid, the real estate market exploded. Investors from the UK, India, Russia, and China bought up luxury villas based entirely on computer-generated blueprints. Many of those properties doubled in value before a single brick was laid. The project hit its cultural peak in 2008 with the opening of Atlantis the Palm. The resort launched with a multi-million-dollar fireworks display, drawing global media, celebrities, and business leaders to the edge of the newly formed island. Between the invisible, multi-layered utility network buried in the sand and the intense global marketing hype, Dubai successfully manufactured the illusion of an organic, permanent city. This top-down diagram illustrates the first major flaw in the design. The massive crescent breakwater successfully protected the sand from eroding. However, those blue arrows show natural ocean currents crashing against the solid outer rock. Because the water couldn't reach the inner fronds, it began to stagnate, threatening marine life and water quality. To save the ecosystem they had inadvertently trapped, engineers had to physically compromise their original design. They fixed the circulation problem by slicing massive gaps directly into the completed breakwater, allowing the tide to flush the stagnant bays naturally. This forced adaptation actually had a positive side effect. The newly modified rock formations became a thriving artificial reef, attracting local fish, sea turtles, and even dolphins. Then, the 2008 financial crash froze the global economy. Investors walked away, collapsing global real estate prices and stalling active construction projects across the island. The government refused to let the project fail. Through stubborn financial backing and a gradual rebound in international tourism over the next several years, development slowly resumed. Palm Jumeirah didn't succeed by conquering the elements. It survived by cutting holes in its own defenses to appease the ocean and relying on state intervention to weather a total economic freeze. Today, Palm Jumeirah is a fully functioning coastal metropolis. The sprawling layout of luxury hotels, private beaches, and apartment towers successfully added 70 kilometers of new shoreline to the city's borders. That success triggered a wave of extreme terraforming. Dubai followed up by creating the World Islands, an archipelago shaped like the globe, expanding their geographic hacking to an even larger scale. Historically, humans proved their willpower by stacking stone into massive vertical structures. Later, we proved our industrial might by physically splitting continents to connect oceans. Palm Jumeirah represents the modern equivalent. It proves that with massive capital, heavy machinery, and an absolute refusal to accept the coastline you were given, you don't have to build your city around the map. You can simply draw your own.